Hello everyone, now let's jump into our favorite topic. I hope some of you are people's favorite topic too, because this one is one of our favorite topics here. It's not because it's fun to do, to be honest. Once you receive a PBM letter or PBM fax, especially if you're a pharmacy owner or you're a pharmacy manager, and you have, let's say, 2 pharmacists and then 4 technicians, and you're busy filling prescriptions all day, day in, day out. You really don't have time to be digging through all of your records to support or to present all the documentation that is needed for an audit. And these days, there's an increase in prescription validation requests. This is from Optum. They have renamed it. It's now prescription validation request. And even if a prescription has not been picked up yet by the patient, let's say you filled it 3 days ago and it's still on your shelf waiting for the patient to pick it up, you would receive a prescription validation request from Optum already. They would just tell you to, kind of like sign or create an attestation that you have dispensed the prescription correctly, send them supporting documents. It's easy because it's usually just 1 prescription, but other PBM don't do that. They would also send you, for example, a desktop audit where they would send you a long list of prescriptions they would like to audit, or for example, for CVS, wherein they would send you an email or a fax telling you that they will audit all of the claims that you dispensed for 1 year. So let's check out one of the clients or one of the pharmacists that we helped last year. So as you can see, the date referenced right here is August 30th, 2023. And on the preliminary audit was conducted on August 24th, discrepancies were found and identified. This audit covers the period of May 1st, 2022 to May 31st, 2023. Put yourself in this pharmacy owner's shoes, and it is now August 30th. Do you even remember what happened on May 1st, 2022? Do you even remember the prescriptions that you just spent on these dates? So that's the good thing about proper record keeping. Make it a habit that you perform all of these checks every month. You will really have to be proactive instead of being reactive, because once the PBM hits you with this letter of fax notification and you are not prepared because you don't think that you're going to be audited, you're going to be scrambling to get all of your paperwork from May 1st, 2022 until May 31st, 2023. That's a lot of paperwork. That's a lot of documentation. And for a busy pharmacy, you mostly do not have time to really, as I've mentioned, dig through all of your records and prepare all of these for an audit. However, if you do have a monthly record keeping of your invoices, your dispenses, all of your compliance things, then it's easy to prepare for an audit because you already have those even before they have sent you the letter. So this is a pretty big audit, and the pharmacy was at least given, so this was sent August 30th, and the documentation was due October 9th. That's a month and 9 days. And while this is happening, or if you're using your PSAO, then payments will be held with a PSAO until such time that the audit has been finalized and that you are able to provide supporting documentation to either remove this full amount or at least lower this amount. So for example, let's say you have 4 pharmacies. You have a PSAO, because for you that is, it's true. PSAO can help contracting with PBM, lots of a headache. Now, however, one of your pharmacies got hit by this, and let's say, for example, the amount of a preliminary discrepancy is $500,000. The PSAO will place a hold of $500,000 from all of your payments, and the hold will only be removed until the audit has been finalized. And as you can see in the date right here, it's like a month. So you're given a month more, a month and 9 days. That's like a month and a week to submit the documentation. And once you submit a documentation, it'll take a couple more days or a couple more weeks to get it cleared. So essentially, you're looking at 2 to 3 months. That amount is put on hold by the PSAO, and that's going to affect your cash flow. So audits are really a headache, and if you're not really prepared, it is going to be the death of your business if you're the pharmacy owner. Let's look into one of the samples that caused this audit. As you can see, that's just page 23 of 105, and we're talking about invoice reconciliation here. You can see in the comments right here, insufficient purchases provided by pharmacy and the drug. A question is for Pensed though, and I'm pretty sure you've noticed this from all of the audits that you might have got it in the past already. Most of the PBM really do love to audit brand medications. Those medications that your pharmacy typically would always dispense, and those drugs that result in a higher claim or a big claim. This is just one prescription number, but different field dates. So look, this is the original field date. This is refill 1, and then this is refill 2. Everything is being audited because, again, This is a letter that this pharmacy received that CVS wanted to do an invoice reconciliation for all of their dispensing from the dates that were identified on the first slide from May 1st to May 31st of 2023. In order to dispute these allegations by CVS, you would have, and part of the invoice reconciliation process is that your wholesaler, whoever you are using, let's say you're using McKesson, you're using Cardinal Health, you're using Amerisource. They would have to send your purchasing history, your invoice history, all of the drugs that you have purchased from them. They will have to send it directly to CVS. But of course, because you're doing your own invoice reconciliation as well, because sometimes these auditors can't do their math. Trust us, there were items identified in this audit. There was one drug in here identified in the audits that they said there is a discrepancy, there is a variance. They didn't do the math correctly. So we were able to dispute that, but that's far and few in between. There are instances wherein we really have to explain why there is a variance, why there is a discrepancy. Aside from the wholesaler sending that over to the PBM directly, you would also have to ask your wholesaler to send that invoice history to you. What do you need to start with balancing? Excel file of your invoices. If you could ask that from your wholesaler, they would definitely give that to you, or you can optionally download it as well. Let's say for McKesson, you can download it from McKesson Connect. For Cardinal Health, you can download the Order Express. And the account manager handles your account from these wholesalers would be glad to assist you and help you with this. Just send them a copy of the letter or a copy of the audit you have received from the PBM, and they would be glad, or they would be able to help you get that Excel copy of your purchasing history. Now, aside from the purchasing history, you also would need to get an Excel file of your dispenses, of course, because this is a basic accounting of your invoices, which will be considered as debit for your dispenses, of course, depending on the pharmacy software that you're using. Some pharmacy softwares make it easy for you to pull this. Some pharmacy softwares make it too hard, but you can always contact your tech support team of the pharmacy software that you're using, so that they can give you all the files that you need. So when we do balancing, it's basically just like this. You input all of your received invoices, you arrange it by date. So if you have received an invoice, you indicate the number here, invoice number, and then dispensed RX, the RX number. You put in the date, the quantity. Your invoice will always be a positive and your dispenses will always be a negative, your balance on hand. So if this is your first entry for this specific NDC, you have here 300 for your invoice, and then you have, at the end of the day, your balance on hand will be 300. The next activity 2 days later is that you have dispensed prescription 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for 30 tablets, or for 30 capsules. So your balance on hand will now then be 270. That's 300 less to 30. You have to spend this year. So your new balance on hand count at the end of the day on the 17th is 270. If for some reason you got another invoice here the next day on January 18th, then of course that's another positive. And your 270 here will increase by the quantity on your invoice. You have to spend this year. So here's a live example of what we did to balance one of the medications. This is not part of an audit. This is an audit. This is part of the audit letter that I first showed in the first few slides. So one of the things that they have identified is that Victoza is short by 6, but we were able to balance it at the end of the day. Ending balance on hand is 0. So this is what we usually do. It's really pretty easy. All you have to get is your dispensing history here. So we're able to get all this dispensing. For privacy purposes, we have redacted of prescription numbers and the invoice numbers. But as you can see, it's arranged chronologically, so we have here beginning balance on hand. So that is why our beginning balance would also start from May 1st, 2022. The good thing about invoice reconciliation, if there's anything you can call good from this, is that they would usually audit only the high-ticket items, the brand items, the very expensive ones. And most pharmacies don't carry brand medication on hand all the time. You really have to order it, because that would be a cash flow killer if you always have these brand medications or expensive medications on your shelf, even if you don't need them. I guess that's another topic for a different video, is how you can better manage your cash flow using perpetual inventory. But for this pharmacy, they are only ordering expensive medications if they get a paid claim when they submit or when they adjudicate the claim. If the patient really expressed that they will be picking up the medication so that they don't spend too much on medications that are too expensive, and they will just sit on the shelf because the patients decided, yeah, I actually did not request for this to be failed, something to that effect. So that's why, at the end of the month, you really are only ordering for prescriptions that you need to dispense. Let's say, for example, for generic medication, you're not sitting on 500 tablets on the shelf. So you have a beginning balance on hand from an invoice that you purchased or from an order which was invoiced prior to May 1st. That's like 6 ml. And you have your new balance on hand. Now you have dispensed RX number, this first one right here on May 10th, so it's -6. At the end of the day, on May 10th, you have 0 balance on hand. Now on June 30th, your system says dispensed RX. Let's pretend this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Refill 1, June 30th, 2022. That's -6. But since you're new, you don't have anything on hand. Your new balance on hand at the end of the day, on June 30th, is -6. But then, as what I've mentioned a while ago, this pharmacy is in the habit of submitting the claims first, before doing an order. So that's why the dispenses here, they come first, prior to them receiving an invoice. So they received an invoice on July 1st of 2022 for 6. This invoice that they received on July 1st, this is what they used to fulfill the claim that they have submitted on June 30th. So one thing that we would like to kind of give you as an advice as well is if you could edit your pharmacy software. If you could set your pharmacy software to deduct the inventory count from your balance on hand count advice that we could provide, you could prevent this, wherein the negative is always first instead of the invoices, even if this would still be applicable, even if you order the medication after you submitted the claim, because the process would be you submit the claim today, that claim will sit on your pharmacy software, because he cannot fill it. So it will be waiting for you to fill, waiting for you to verify your order today. The wholesaler delivers your order the next day, which will be tomorrow with an invoice. So you can still continue to do that if that is how you're doing your current ordering. However, we would like to advise you to make sure that the inventory count is only deducted at the check verification stage, or when your pharmacist verifies the prescription, that is when the inventory is deducted from the inventory count, not from the data entry screen. Because, for example, this one on May 10th, 2022, there's 0 balance on hand, but because their system makes it so that every time the claim is adjudicated at data entry, the count dispense quantity is deducted from the balance on hand at data entry. That's why it's -6. If they had set this up so that the count is deducted from the balance on hand during pharmacist verification, then this would be a different scenario. The invoice would have been the first entry here, received invoice July 1st, and then dispensed RX on July 1st as well, is when you do the pharmacist verification. So I hope that's clear so that you don't have to go and process a negative. That is all for inventory balancing. And for sometimes, especially for medications, there are multiple NDC that might be used. So sometimes PBM would say, okay, for this NDCA, you're short by, let's say, 30. But for when you notice that a bio-interchangeable NDC for that same medication, you're over by 30. And when then you realized, during your review, your balance and hand audit, you will realize that for NDCB, there's really no discrepancy because for one prescription, we dispensed multiple NDC. We were able to use NDCA and NDCB. All of those little nuances, all of those little explanations, you just really have to send it over to the PBM so that they can accept your explanation. So what happened to this audit letter that this pharmacy received? We helped this pharmacy, and at the end of the day, this amount went down to, let me see if I can still get a copy of that letter. But from what I remembered is that we were able to bring this down to around 50-40-ish for 50K audit amount. Imagine from this amount, 3.6 to 50K or 40K, because we were able to provide all of the documentations needed and all of these audits here. It's like telling them, hey, this is what really happened, and here's why it happened. So the PVM or CVS accepted the information that were provided to them. And that's why we were able to bring down the amount by thousands and thousands of dollars. So if you have any questions on how to do this, we will be able to help you. There's going to be a free download at the end of this video. It's just basic. I mean, if you want to do it yourself, you can, but if you want kind of like a template on how to do this balance on hand audit file, we will be glad to give that to you. It's going to be a free download at the end of this class. There's a lot of regulatory bodies that we have to report to. There's a board of pharmacy, there's a DEA, some PBM who would do on-site visits, on-site audit, And you have to make sure that your pharmacy is prepared for all of these eventualities, right? Sometimes before you can even get contracted for a specific plan, they would tell you that part of the contracting process is that someone from their team will have to visit your pharmacy unannounced to review your operations, how you're doing, or how you're managing, or just to literally see what's going on inside the pharmacy. And some pharmacies are not prepared to do this. Some pharmacies only do self-assessment audits, let's say by email. Sometimes some of them do this self-assessment once a year. Some pharmacies do it twice in a year. It depends on the state where you're from. And some of these pharmacies just follow the state regulation. Of course, there's nothing wrong with doing that, if that's how you prefer. But for what we do with our clients, we make sure that they are prepared all the time. If the regulation only says that you do your self-assessment every year, that's fine. What we suggest you do is make sure that your staff, especially your pharmacist in charge, knows all of this. From top to bottom, they know their pharmacy. They know everything that goes on inside a pharmacy, because at the end of the day, it's also their licenses. It involves their licenses. We want to keep making sure the business stays alive. There's no citations, there's no penalties, and there's no fines. What you see and hear in our screen is a self-assessment audit that we use for one of our clients in Oregon. This is a new pharmacy that just opened a couple of months ago. So this is based on what we have as our own template. We have poor self-assessment audits, and this was merged with the self-assessment audit form that's coming from Oregon Board of Pharmacy. Now, the Oregon Board of Pharmacy only requires a self-assessment audit if there's a new PIC, and some states require a self-assessment audit every 6 months. Sometimes they don't. Some state boards require self-assessment audits every 2 years, every 1 year. It really depends what state you're from or what state you're operating from. As I've mentioned, what we do or what we advise our clients is to make the self-assessment audits a habit. We require our clients, or we require PIC, to make sure that they do the self-assessment audit every month. This is your proactive way of preparing everyone on site to be ready in case there are any unannounced visits. For example, we had this client in California. They were visited by MedImpact. It was announced, but the staff of the pharmacy. A client was very well prepared because they do this monthly. They were briefed on what to do in the event that a visit happens, and all of their files are in one place. We have finders in place on what to do, what files to show, where are your SOP, where are your policies and procedures, all of that stuff. So it's just really very basic. We have the self-assessment. We can give this to you as part of this webinar. When the visit happens, it's always the PIC they're really going to talk to. Sometimes it could be the lead technician assisting the pharmacist or the PIC. Sometimes they won't ask you all of these questions, but they will just pick and choose, but at least your staff is prepared because they do it monthly. It's not like a one-time event for them, only that they forget it for most of the year. And then boom, a visit happens. They're scrambling to find all of her documents, so it's just here. It's a checklist that they have to go through every month. Are we really prepared for an audit, for an eventuality of an audit? We also have a checklist for preparing for a DEA audit. Are all of these prepared? Because if you get a visit from the DEA, you have all of these ready, so it's easily retrievable. You have a binder just for the DEA audit. We also have a checklist actually for the Board of Pharmacy. So if a Board of Pharmacy visits the pharmacy and it could be announced, they might be telling the PIC, hey, we're going to conduct an inspection today for your pharmacy, but sometimes they don't. So what we do is for all of our clients, we prepared this BOP binder at the pharmacy. In this BOP binder is a list of documents that the PIC will show to the inspector in the event of an inspection or an audit, and all of the necessary information are there. Most of the files inside the binder, we have a table of contents, and that is easily retrievable. So aside from preparing for monthly self-audits and a checklist for an eventual DA audit, and we do this monthly, most of the time we select for our clients, we select the 10th of the month. So all of the compliance stuff, all control count is done and due on the 10th. Then our back-end team will review. We will conduct mock assessments if they are in compliance with the board, if they're in compliance with the PBM and all other regulatory bodies. For all of our clients as well, we prepare a binder. So this is a binder that is in the pharmacy with all of the documents that are necessary for when inspector decides to visit the pharmacy. Sometimes we all know that these visits could be unannounced, so at least when they do visit, we could just provide the inspector of this binder. All of the things that a state board might need or might ask from your PIC is already in there. So this is a sample of the table of contents page of the BOP binder that we have prepared for one of our clients in Oregon. And this could vary from state to state. For the state of California, for one of our clients, it's not as exhaustive as this. But for this client, Oregon, because their state board requires a lot more, this is what we have prepared for them. So it's easily retrievable. The binder is indexed. So there's like tabs wherein for page 1 you have the pharmacy licenses, or for page 2 you have your DA license. So in this state, board inspector would ask, where's your pharmacy license? Where's your DA license? It's all in that one binder. You don't have to find it in several places because it's easily retrievable. So if they would ask you, where's your facility and emergency recovery plan? It's already part of a binder. When they ask you, where's your power of attorney? Where are your CSIS documents? It's all in that binder, and it's easy to get too easy to retrieve because your pharmacist or your PIC could just grab this binder and present it to the board inspector. So that is what we do for the pharmacies that we manage, so that they will always pass and they will always be compliant with all of these inspections and audits from all of these regulatory bodies.
All right, so in this video, we are going to talk about preparing for the audit. So let's just assume that the PBM had flagged one of your claims, and now you have received this very scary letter whereby they talk about auditing 30 of your prescriptions, right? So when you get this in your pharmacy, you're probably freaked out. Oh my goodness, what is that going to happen? So the first thing we want you to do, if you actually have this and you have never gone through an audit and you're not sure how to prepare, send us a message, send us a DM. One of my teammates, our staff, is going to reach out to you. If you are just had gone through an audit, you wanted to prepare your pharmacy so that you can bulletproof them, we also are giving you some of our standard checklist. And again, if you want a more in-depth support, just send us a message and we'd be happy to provide that for you. Now, when you receive an audit, it comes in various ways, right? We have seen where an audit came because a patient complained about your operation. Okay, that's a big one. The second one, the PBM had flagged you because it could be an honest accident from your staff, which means they didn't mean to run these claims for you and the day supply were wrong, whatever the case may be. It flagged the insurance. And then that same technician or the same pharmacist who kept making the same mistake, let's say there is now a dozen of that different various claims, right? But it flagged the insurance company that you have this errors coming from your pharmacy operation, your NPI. What that's going to do is then, typically from a PBM standpoint, they look at it and say, what am I going to do with this operation? It's clear that either you're cheating, you're trying to get more money from your bottom line, you just don't know. Again, the job of the PBM, you can look at it in various ways, right? But I think where we sit as pharmacy owners and business operators, we're looking at it because, in a very different lens. Because we're the one that are stuck there with paying your staff, taking care of your community, taking care of everybody else's well-being except yourself as a pharmacy owner or a business owner. You're the last. You're always thinking about yourself in the last. Now, when you have this audit, it's really paralyzing. I've gone through very, very big audits, and we're going to share that with you. And we're also going to show you a very simple desk audit. We're also going to show you some of our large PBMs that would come to your pharmacy every couple of years. And those could be also very terrifying if you've never gone through one. So our hope for you, if you're watching this video, is to just get prepared. How do you get your pharmacy prepared if you have not gone through this? Now, if you just started a pharmacy, you've never owned a pharmacy before, you work from a chain, great. You probably want to learn this. Probably the best place to start is looking at our free videos so you can prepare your pharmacy in case you have an audit, okay? So you want to make sure that the bottom line for an audit, I hate to say it, there's only two things that they're looking for you. They're looking at your operation. Are you cheating? Are there some shady things happening in your operation? That's what they're looking for. If you have an involvement with an agency, a state agency or a federal agency, what they're looking for are these unusual events occurring in your business operations. So either somebody has reported that, whatever the case, or sometimes a staff is really mad at the owner. They decided to call the state board and reported all these crazy things, even though if it's not true. But sometimes it could be true. That's what they're there for. The other thing that we have seen also are the federal agencies. You don't want them knocking on your door. I've dealt with them in the past, so that could be very intimidating. And I think a lot of pharmacy owners, especially if you're not accustomed to these kinds of compliances, you get so nervous. So you end up calling your attorney, and they gave you the worst case scenario, and here you are paralyzed and you can't run your operation. I've seen that happen more often than not. So my goal is not to scare you, but my goal is to really have you look at your operations as you watch this video, and hopefully look at the sample tools that we have shared here where you can do your own checklist in your pharmacy. If you haven't done this, please start doing that. So this way you can sleep at night knowing that your business operations is good. Now, some of the things that we're going to have is look at the prescriptions. Again, we will show you some tricks. Run your prescription, your brand versus generic. You want to make sure that's there. I think over the past 5 to 7 years, I would say that the pharmacies and the providers in general have been very good with regards to really looking at the percentage of controlled substances to your overall prescriptions. Although there are still some, not all, operations that are just really crazy, right? Not generalizing everything else. I'm just giving you an example based on our community, based on our clients that we have, and all of my colleagues in between that I've worked with, I've consulted with that I also hired our company to be able to look at the business operations as a whole. So what they tend to look at in the audit is really, sometimes they have not visited your pharmacy. So please don't freak out if you have received this. This is your first time receiving this. What do you do? And then the other piece is also having to have your policies and procedures. I have purchased several pharmacies that do not even have an SOP. They don't have a policies and procedures. So if I am an auditor coming into your business, looking at your books, looking at your prescriptions, you would be surprised that these are in fact not a standard. So if you are a pharmacist watching this video and you're part of our community and you decided to work for an independent, which by the way is a great thing. If you have never worked for an independent pharmacy, it's wonderful. It's very self-fulfilling because you get to do a lot of things creatively, clinically with the community versus when you work for a large chain, right? Nothing wrong with working with a large chain, but you don't get that immediate reaction from your customer and your boss because the owners is probably, you know them, you met them, you see them often. So the feedback is very close. But what I also caution for some of the pharmacists leaving the big chain or the recent grad, my goodness, the recent grad who has no time or don't even know how to run a pharmacy, let alone took a job and become a PIC. My hope is that if there's one thing you learn from this is how do you protect and how do you learn the compliance piece? Because this is not really taught in school. A lot of the schools today, they focus heavily on the clinical part so you don't kill somebody. But what they don't talk about and they don't spend a lot of time is your compliance. I remember many, many years ago, we only have the law, literally, I think on my last year. How in the heck am I going to run and become this great CEO I am today? It took me a long time, believe it or not. So don't feel bad. But I wish the universities today are teaching you that. And what I've also seen in pharmacy owners have no idea in running business operations. That's how you get into trouble. That's how you get the feds knocking on your door, right? You're getting greedy. You don't want that. Have I seen that happen? Absolutely. Absolutely. Number 2, you are also trying to cheat the system, right? Because we know that the margins are getting small. So the pharmacy owners are getting desperate. So these are the things why these audits are coming your way. Again, these audits could be both for good and for bad. So what we're trying to hope for you, if you're watching this, is that we are here to help you. Don't feel bad because trust me, if I look at a Google right now, if I go to Google, search for any group, any place that could help me with an audit, I can just very few far in between. Most of what you find right now, I've actually interacted with them. But I don't have a place where you're not hiring an attorney yet, you're not in trouble yet, you don't need an entire defense team or whatever the case may be. But rather, you want to make sure you have a team that understands a community that you can talk to, freely without somebody spying on us. And that's why we created this group. That's why we want to have, especially for our paid community, where we wanted to talk to you first, because sometimes we have more solutions for you than what our community can bring. And also we have some pharmacy owners that are looking to scale their business, and we have those opportunities, we have those packages as well for you, but that's not necessarily on our paid community, just for you to kind of learn a little bit more. So we have all those buckets. So part of this is if you just need an emergency now, I need help, that information also is available for you. So one of us, you'll probably see me in those calls to make sure that I'm here to help you. If I don't have any answer, I will get our legal team, our compliance team to take a look at that so we can get you in time and get you back in business. Now, this is one of my favorite parts. How do you train your staff? The hardest part is training your staff to be compliant and to minimize this audit. So one of the things we are doing, and if you decide to be in our paid community and you in fact use our software that I built over the years, this team, the software we built, I wish I had this, because let's say you finally have a PIC, a pharmacist in charge running your business. You probably haven't taken a vacation, right? You feel guilty taking vacation because your business is going to go south, down south. And if that's the case, that means you really need to fix your operation. One of the things that you don't see often is this part, training your staff. You just hire somebody, you like them, and then you like them, you hire them, you put them as a technician. That's it. That's your training. But if you actually have this tool that we have where we create this task list, this is automated list. Again, automation is going to be your best friend. If you're a one-man show, you own one operation and you have 2 to 3 technicians, or your family member is employed, whatever the case. We created this task list, okay? Take a look at this task list. And if you haven't done this, and if you're just using your Excel, it may be a little bit challenging. But what we have built is your entire software whereby you can actually tag your team. So your technician, your PIC, your driver, whoever you have, it's there. These were the tasks that have helped my operation, other pharmacies, and a lot of our clients now that have run and streamlined their operations altogether. So part of the task is actually running some of these highly audited prescriptions. In today's time, if you're watching this, 2024, we have seen that obviously the weight loss drugs, Ozempic, Mounjaro, Zepbound, really one of those things they audit the most, right? It makes sense. It's pretty hot in our country. You look at these, are these patients really diabetic, or it's done for weight loss, whatever the case may be. We have a list of those that we run those reports. Now, the way we run this is how you train your staff is that these checklists, for example, it's going to be up to you. Every pharmacy that we've actually managed, every pharmacy of our clients, I pick the 10th of each month. Whatever the number for you, whatever's easy for you, but try to pick the 10th of each month. The 10th of each month become basically a rule where you run all of your compliance. What does that mean? If you have your SOPs, and if you don't have those SOPs, send us a message. We're going to help you. We'll figure out how you can get that so you can get your pharmacy compliant. In this particular audit preparation on the 10th, we run a report for your C3, your C2s, right? You're going to allow your staff to do this every single month. You look at your invoices every single month that they have stamped, they have signed it, that you've received it. It's completely organized, that your C2, your C3, and your regular invoices are completely separated if you are still using your old way of filing prescriptions. Then the third piece to this is making sure that those high ticket items that is being screened by the PBMs is something you're also running a report. Okay? Another thing that's pretty big right now are your shipments, right? I think after COVID, there were rules that were kind of stretched. And then after COVID, the PBM started coming to us pharmacy owners, and it was very, very unfair. It really upsets me that we have to do much more than what we're already doing, right? By the way, we're doing like so much more ready to run a pharmacy. And then they're adding all of these things for us to be able to audit whatever we're doing, right? So that's besides the point. Now, on your monthly audits, this becomes second nature to your staff, right? So if they're coming into your work, they're clocking in and clocking out, they want to get paid. You're gonna have them really be able to look at your compliance as part of their monthly routine, monthly task. So in the task checklist, let's say you have a staff, your technician, your lead technician, they have to be able to complete that. You'd be surprised. So what we created is actually an automation whereby your pharmacy, they're tagged to do that. So let's say you're not busy, you're going to see that their task, whoever you assign for that, they're going to get that in their dashboard. You got to complete that. At the end of the month, I think if you have not done this on a regular basis, just bear in mind that it may take you 6 to 8 weeks to clean up your process. But I urge you to start now if you're not doing this as part of your routine. Because when you get an audit, I promise you, it's not going to be that difficult. Because now you know that your pharmacy is compliant, you have nothing to worry about, and you have balanced your entire inventory. The other thing that we also see is these are typically the very big ones that causes you an audit, okay? Claim volumes. I've experienced this myself. One of our businesses have a huge, because we partnered a large company where the claim of one NDC, because we became now a preferred pharmacy to deliver specific medication. For PBMs that does not know that about you, for example, or you have a provider nearby that whatever specialty they have, they started sending prescriptions to you. This will flag the PBMs right away. They want to know that you're not having any shady business happening in your operation. But just expect that if that's were to happen, and that's why having a KPI handy for you is so important. Because if you have that, it's going to be a lot easier for you to track in preparation. Know that most of that PBM, whatever you're running in that NDC, you know that they're going to knock and ask you random claims for that particular NDC, right? So we've done this several cases in my operations where we have audits, particularly on an HIV side. We've also seen one on a derma side because we were one of the largest derma pharmacies. So expect that when this happens, you want to make sure that if you're doing shipment, all those shipment tracking are on point. If you need help how to prepare that, just send us a DM. We'll be happy to help you. If you are also collecting copay, right? That's another thing you wanted to make sure that you are collecting the copay for that particular transaction. So if you have not, or if you're not thinking about kind of thinking outside the box down the road, if you want to have a stream of revenue for you, you want to be able to understand that sometimes the problem of all these PBM is when you collect the copay up front and you wanted to bill the insurance, it's kind of backwards, right? You run the claim and you collect the copay. That's the perfect way to do it. You run the claim, you buy the prescription, you verify, you collect the copay, and you ship. That's the right way to do that. But if you are in partnerships or whatever the case may be, what we have seen also and why audits happen to you or might happen to you is because you collect the copayment up front and then you're running insurance. So you're going to get into trouble because you're running the copay. In other words, you're collecting the copay of that patient. You haven't really done service. So we have seen that happen. And a lot of times, some of those clients are wondering, hey, I didn't do anything. Well, when you actually look at your provider contract, that is a no-no to them. So you want to be very careful and really truly understand before you take a partnership that could create a trigger for your business. Okay? So I just want you to understand how this could happen to you and why it could happen to you. Now, the discrepancies, I think you guys have experienced this already in your pharmacy, where wrong NDC, wrong day supply. This is usually from a desktop audit. But if you're seeing a lot of this happening in your pharmacy, I think the question you want to make sure is it goes back to how you train your staff. Because 9 out of 10, you'll be surprised. Your technicians are probably just really tired. They're just, entry. So if you decide to work with our team, we have our auditors internally that would actually run these reports for you. And we catch this ahead of time. And the goal here is to fix these claims before completed at the point of sale. If you had it, let's say, for example, you hire our services and we're able to you run and caught several of those claims ahead of time, we can fix it. So if you were to get the entire clawbacks, we would fix it. You're not going to lose the 10,000. Remember, I had this example where if you lose 10,000, you may just lose a couple thousand versus the entirety of the claim because we're able to intercept that entire fill of that prescription. So you have to also learn where to invest and how to invest your resources in pharmacy. Because auditing, we built an entire compliance and regulatory internally. And I knew that we were growing, we're scaling, that having a team internally looking at this 24/7 was going to be a lot easier for us to fight with a PBM, state, federal, and PBMs. So if you don't have that resources, that's not a problem. Absolutely not, right? So how can you do that when you're just trying to run your business? You can always send us a message. I will have some tools that we can send you so you can start at least bulletproofing your business. But if you feel like there's a lot for you to do and you don't know what to do that, send us a DM and I'll be sure to answer that and help you and get you the right track. Because again, this is just some of the things that is very, very big to them, right? So 1, 2, 3 is really that. On the complaint side, this is really the State Board of Pharmacy coming to you. Whatever state you are, California, New York are very, very difficult to deal with. And they come to your operation if somebody complains. Okay? Now, the worst case is that you get kicked out from a PBM, Humana, United Health, whatever the case. They would actually report you to the State Board of Pharmacy. But depending on your state, some states are much more forgiving. Some states do not like the PBM, so they really don't. They just kind of interview the owners, get a little bit of statement, and close that. If you are dealing with a different state, if they take that complaint, they can actually give you a hell because they sided with the PBM. It's really messed up. But that's the reality of our industry. So that's why we built this community for you to be proactive, for you to be able to fight. Because I'm telling you, some of the state boards are not your friend. They are not your friend. Do not talk to them. They're not your friend. We tell your staff, train your staff that they're there. Keep your mouth limit. Do not talk to them. Their job is to actually penalize pharmacy owners. So if you don't believe me, interview as much as you can and you'll find them. So our goal here is to have you guys prepare ahead of time, because you might think you're running your business so well and it takes 1 or 2 of your technicians inadvertently make a mistake and piss off somebody, and now you are confronted with a PBM. Or worse, you got kicked out by the insurance and then here you are at the brink of losing your business because now they reached out to the state board, and if they're not happy, a Fed DEA is knocking on your door as well. And let's add to that nightmare, you are a brand new pharmacy grad and you are working in an independent pharmacy and you don't know what to do, you don't know where to go. So that's why we also built this community. If you're a brand new pharmacist and really love pharmacy, I love pharmacy, and you don't know where to go, a community where you can actually ask and talk to us about it. So this place is for you as well. And finally, we do our internal audits. Okay, so again, I said to you earlier, we do this on the 10th of each month. The 10th of each month, I have the PIC run the report. They complete that. These are the checklists that they're going to do. And I look at the summary. Are there any corrective actions that they have to do in the pharmacy or not? On the flip side, I get this report probably the 15th. So if you are operating multi-location, for example, and you don't have a regional pharmacy manager running your operations, it's just you. You don't need to do this step, right? So let's say you have 3 pharmacies that you're operating. Have them complete this report, your PIC, on the 10th of each month. Have your lead tech or your pharmacist in charge work together, right? Because I prefer having C3 to 5 to be counted by the technicians. Depending on your state, again, depending on your situation, some of our clients, they wanted to do it all. Whatever you want, it's up to you. But I get this report usually after the 10th. So I know by then, our regional managers would look at this and send me a summary. I would get that report. You will know by then, by the time you get it as an owner, as a CEO of your company, where are the deficiencies, right? So time and time, you also know, because you're a pharmacist, hopefully, you will know which store, which staff is needing a lot of help, right? So when you find that, our goal is to really help them also understand why, what are the challenges. And that's when you want to think about outsourcing, because sometimes a lot of the administrative staff is what's causing these errors. And most of these could be outsourced. You don't have to do it, but you can also have a team do that for you, right? And that's where we see a huge lift in your business operations. You see a huge lift as far as satisfaction of your staff. Then that equates to a very, very happy customers. That then in turn into more profits in your pocket as a pharmacy owner, right? Because remember, you're the last one that gets paid. Everybody gets paid for it before you. Although a lot of people think, hey, you're a CEO, you do everything. Depends on your situation, but most of the pharmacy owners I've interviewed, I've purchased their businesses. The story is very much like that. So you're not alone if you are deciding to sell your business. Lastly, for us, we will help you how to make this really organized. So if you have decided to be one of our clients, you will have your own software. So that's really going to be your best friend. Every monthly reports, every checklist that you don't have to save that in a hard copy or get lost. So we have all of that electronically. So that becomes your best friend. Your PIC will feel more comfortable because at the 10th of each month, they upload that. You get to see that as a CEO, or if you're a larger organization, you have your regional managers that review that. Then you have a compliance team that does that, and so on and so forth, depending how big of your org chart is. But for most, the moment they see that and they have that report, you start to feel confident and comfortable that your pharmacy is operating very, very successfully, right? You're not afraid. You're almost ready and welcome that any PBMs that shows up in your pharmacy, any state and federal agency who has a question for you, you're ready to go. So we want to make sure you're also ready and you're not so bombarded with that part of running your business, because the key here is, unfortunately, what I have seen, what I've experienced myself, and when we meet all these clients nationwide, they don't have time to run your business, right? Your job as an owner is to optimize, to run your operations successfully. Your ability to deliver your patients' prescriptions, your ability to innovate your operations, your ability to bring more providers so that you have more business, more net profits in your pocket. But what ends up happening is you get so bombarded when a huge audit comes in, because it can go both ways. I'm sure you guys can see a lot of the horror stories, is that some of these audits are very unfair. I'm not going to lie to you. Have I experienced that myself? Yes. But fortunately, we were able to challenge that, and we're going to show you and we're going to expose some of these examples for you to actually see and understand. And it's shocking. How do you overcome several $1 million audits in that regard? And what do you do when that happens? And I've seen where some of them cannot survive. So others also are presented with these large audits, but at the end of the day, they were able to challenge. And I think when a PBM or an auditor sees how organized your operations are, that's where it becomes very, very, they become more comfortable, and then they are able to renegotiate with you on their final findings as well. So these are some of the things I want you guys to be prepared. If you have any questions, send us a message, and we're here to help you. And feel free to message me myself, and look forward to hopefully collaborating with y'all. All right, take care.